Just from tracking people as they have entered the meeting, yes, we do have quorum.
All right, well, let's start the meeting. Call to order. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order, which we've already done. And before we begin, please be sure to silence your phones, communication devices, so we don't hear any feedback or interruption during the meeting. During the meeting, all participants except for the presenter and myself will be placed on mute. If you'll all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, face your respective flags. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We may not have been in sync together, but it was heartfelt. Janice, if you'll now conduct a roll call. And also we have a new person, Dr. Edwin Gomez, our newly appointed Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. You have big shoes to fill, sir.
I do, and good afternoon, and thank you so much for the invitation, and very honored to be here. And of course, as you stated, filling in some big shoes, but honored to really follow Dr. White's legacy. Thank you.
Welcome. Janice, conduct roll call, please.
Certainly, and as I call your jurisdiction for the benefit of those who may be calling in and cannot see who's on the screen, would you please state your name? City of Banning, Beaumont, Calamasa.
Jeff Cervantes, present.
Thank you, sir. Canyon Lake. Jordan Aaron Krantz is here. I see you, sir. Corona.
Jason Scott, present.
Eastvale. Hemet.
Russ Brown.
Europa Valley.
Mike Goodland.
Thank you, sir. Lake Elsinore.
Brian Tisdale here.
Menifee.
Matt Linspire here.
Moreno Valley.
Victoria Baca here.
Murrieta.
Kelly Ciarto here.
Norco.
Yes.
Paris.
Rita Rogers here.
Riverside.
Rusty Bailey here.
San Jacinto.
Crystal Ruiz here.
Temecula.
Marianne Edwards here.
Wildemar.
Ben Benoit here.
County of Riverside, District 1. District 2.
Here.
Thank you. District 3.
I'm here.
Thank you, sir. District 5.
I'm here also.
Thank you. Eastern Municipal Water District.
Ron Sullivan here.
Western Municipal Water District.
Good afternoon. Brenda Denstead here.
Riverside County Superintendent of Schools.
Present, Edwin Gomez. Thank you.
And WRCOG TAC Chair. That concludes roll call, and we do have quorum.
Thank you. Do I have any public comments?
I have no requests. Susie?
Okay. Going once, going twice. Susie, anything?
I have no requests either. And Andy Arcoro is here for the record.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and may be enacted by one motion. Prior to the motion to consider any action by the committee, do we have any public comments?
I have no requests. Susie?
Do we have any committee member that would like to pull something? Do we hear a motion?
Motion to approve, Murrieta. Second, Corona.
All right. Janice, can you conduct a roll call?
City of Banning, Beaumont, Calamasa.
Jeff Cervantes, yes.
You can simply say yes. Thank you. Corona,
Yes.
Eastvale, Hemet,
Yes.
Europa Valley,
Yes.
Lake Elsinore,
Yes.
Menifee,
Aye.
Moreno Valley.
I'm voting to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 5E, which I'm abstaining.
Thank you, ma'am. Murrieta,
Yes.
Norco,
Yes.
Paris,
Yes.
Riverside.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. San Jacinto, Temecula,
Yes.
Wildemar,
Yes.
County of Riverside, District 1, District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
Eastern Municipal Water District,
Yes.
Western Municipal Water District.
Yes.
That concludes roll call vote and it passes unanimously.
Janice,
Sir,
excuse me. This is Jordan Aaron, Grants Canyon Lake. I think you skipped over me.
I've got you here, sir. How is your vote?
Well, I have to abstain on 5E as well.
And approval of the remainder?
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to 6A, report from the League of California Cities, Aaron Sassy. Hi, Aaron.
Hi. Nice to see all of you.
You too.
Well, I just have a brief update. Obviously, the legislative session is quiet right now, but the governor did issue an executive order last week that would allow commercial activities like restaurants outside on the right-of-ways on state highways. So if you happen to have something, obviously most of our freeways is not ideal, but I know we have a couple of highways throughout our area. So if you have somewhere that could work for outdoor dining, it would be allowed at this point. Policy committees, we are starting the process to get everybody appointed for next year. I know some of you have sent in applications. We still have a little bit of time for that, but work with me if you want to be on a policy committee. And then Monday, we have our next division meeting. The city of Blythe is hosting us, which is exciting since it's a little bit far for us to get out to them. So virtually it's a little bit easier for them to be highlighted. For the division meeting on Monday, we are doing our goal setting for the division so that when the state does its goal setting, we have kind of a sense of what our area wants. So I would definitely encourage all of you to participate. In addition to that, we're doing our division award, thanking our sponsors, and then we're playing trivia at the end of it for some networking. So hopefully you can all join us on Monday. But with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, but thank you for having me.
Are there any questions for Aaron? Looks like you're off the hook. All right, thanks, Aaron. Moving on to 6B, Riverside County Economic Recovery Task Force update. Juan Perez, County of Riverside.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll give you a brief update on behalf of the task force and also our public health department for the county. I know that you're all aware that Riverside County is currently in what's considered the purple tier. We were moved back into that tier by the state on October 20th. There are two key metrics that Riverside County and other counties are measured by, if you will, by the state before considering whether to have us advance into the next tier. Those are the positivity rate. In order to move back into the red tier, which does allow some limited use of indoor operations, our positivity rate would have to be below 8%. We're currently at about 6.1%. The second metric that is measured is our case rate. That would have to be below 7 per 100,000. And our current case rate is about 11.5 per 100,000. So what we are seeing here in Riverside County, similar to what we're seeing throughout the rest of the country and the world, really are some increases in cases. One news to report is our testing volume has increased very significantly. We're currently at 236 cases per 100,000. We were at about 140 not that long ago, about a month ago. So it's been through a lot of efforts, our cities, our economic recovery task force, working with our business community, our nonprofits and others, that we have been able to increase our testing to the point that we're really right at about the statewide average for counties. So if we're able to get to the point that we're exceeding the statewide average, we would actually, in one of the metrics, be able to get a positive adjustment towards our case rate. So testing continues to be a high level of focus, obviously not just to meet the state metrics, but also because of the opportunity it provides to be able to identify cases and stop the spread and do interventions as quickly as we can. The county has set up a testing task force that includes our cities and includes, again, the business community and nonprofits to see how we can continue to build on the work that has been going on to increase our testing. So that task force is meeting regularly. We have submitted requests to the state for some additional resources, additional mobile testing sites. We currently have 3 mobile operations in the county. We've requested that the state add another 4 to us, to our operations. And we are also working with our cities to look at a testing model that includes self-administered testing. And we've made a request to the state to be able to provide materials for self-administered tests, and then working with our cities and our business community to be able to roll out that testing in addition to all the other testing that we're doing now. We are, overall, our hospitalizations, we have seen some increase here in the last week or so. We are still well below the peak periods we're seeing in July, but we are continuing to monitor our hospital capacity and our COVID hospitalizations daily. I mentioned the testing task force, so that continues to be a focus for us. We're also working through our focused community action plan with nonprofits and others to increase our outreach to at-risk communities so that we can provide them the resources and support that would be helpful to them to reverse any negative trends in those areas. Our public health team does work with our business ambassador program. I think I may have shared with you before that the county has a business ambassador program where we reach out to our business community and they reach out to us, and we go out and we'll help them do assessments of their locations. We'll also make them aware of resources that are available to help them, provide PPE and other resources as well. And we are now also partnering with our public health team to look at specific businesses that may be experiencing increased cases or a cluster of cases in their location to see how we can best assist them to deal with that. Last week, our board directed our county executive office to reach out and have a conversation with our other Southern California counties to see how we can be more effective in working together across Southern California to develop a cohesive strategy by which we can approach the state and work to try to reopen up our economy sooner, with a focus, of course, on maintaining and enhancing our public health measures in order to do so safely. So that's an overall effort. The county also is wrapping up our business assistance program. That's been very successful. I believe it's close to $46 million in business assistance grants that have been provided through the county to help our businesses that are been struggling through the pandemic. And we have a rental assistance program as well that continues. So that's kind of an overall snapshot, Mr. Chair. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions from the committee members.
Does the committee have any questions for Juan?
Nope.
If Emmett has his hand raised, sir.
You know what? I'm not seeing hands raised. Normally I do. All right, who has his hand raised?
City of Hemet.
Hemet, please.
Yes, Supervisor, thank you for that report. I've heard from a couple of constituents that expressed some frustration about the emphasis that the county's putting on people getting tested, whether they have symptoms or not. And the 2 people that I've heard from went to a Walgreens in their effort to get tested, and they were turned away because they were not experiencing any symptoms. That's what they told me. So I'm just passing that along. Maybe the private sector is not quite as engaging as the county was. I know my wife and I went some time ago to the Paris Fairgrounds, and had no difficulties there.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. We are continuing to work with the private sector as far as the county and the state testing locations. Anyone can get tested pretty much at any time. We encourage appointments, but there's also some opportunities in some areas we'd like to do an appointment, but to be able to get people in on the same day. It is a conversation that our public health continues to have with private providers, since some of them in different healthcare systems have their own set of rules and requirements. So that's a conversation that is ongoing as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Supervisor Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Juan, I heard the Hemet mayor refer to you as supervisor. I don't know if that's a promotion or a demotion. Condolences if you got the promotion. I wanted to add that if you visit covid19.ca.gov and click on the state dashboard, you'll see some of the numbers that Juan just described: the positivity rate, the case rate, and the adjusted case rate. The adjusted case rate is an adjustment the state makes based on the amount of testing, the volume of testing you do. So if you look at, for example, San Diego County, their case rate is above the threshold for the red tier, but they get an adjusted case rate because of the volume of testing they're doing that takes them below the threshold. Our adjusted case rate is actually a little bit higher than our case rate because we need to get our volume of testing up. And I'll explain it this way to you. The state figured out before we could figure it out that if it was just a flat case rate, that people could lower their case rate by just testing fewer people. So they're trying to encourage us to test, and the testing also leads us towards a way to resolve some of the positive cases or identify spikes in certain regions within the county that we can then go and attack. That keeps our case rate down, keeps us safe, allows our businesses to open and keep us moving forward instead of backwards. Just wanted to add that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. Brian Tisdale.
Yeah, I just want to say, in my day job, I oversee all the county sites, the test sites. So if anyone is interested in an additional site in their area, I'm the one that also controls the mobile teams. I have 4 mobile teams that roam throughout the county. They can contact me and we can set up and see if we can test in your area. So, a lot of complain about they don't get enough testing. I've probably been to every corner of this county. We've tested quite a few folks. But if someone feels that they're not getting testing in your area and you want the testing, please contact me. You can do it through my county email, Brian Tisdale or btisdale@rivco.org. And I will make sure that we come out to your area if we haven't touched it.
And I will give a quick shout out to Brian and his team. Opal was just sharing a story with me last night about how someone was making an effort to get a test and they were running in a little bit of resistance. And I believe it was a private carrier. She called Brian and Brian had set up the test for that individual within 45 minutes. So thank you, Brian, for all of your hard work there. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we will move on to 6C, activities update from Eastern Municipal Water District, Western Municipal Water District. Brenda Denstead, looks like you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me? I want to make sure I've got good audio.
Good afternoon. You sound good.
Great. Thank you so much. We were having a little bit of difficulty earlier, so I'm glad we got that squared away. Do we have the presentation up for screen sharing? There we go. Perfect. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be doing a 3-part series along with my colleague. We'll spread that out over the next couple of months with Director Ron Sullivan over from our other agency, Eastern Municipal Water Districts, which we work very closely with on a lot of projects and a lot of area water sourcing that we do. So just wanted to give you a brief overview of kind of where we start and what our agencies have been working very hard for your customers, your residents that live in your jurisdictions, because we are the 2 major wholesalers for this side of the county. So if you could go ahead and advance the slide, please. So today we're going to talk about imported water sources and how those make up what we bring to Riverside County. We get water delivered from the state projects, which comes up from the Bay Delta area up through Sacramento and travels all the way down here. And then we have the Colorado River Aqueduct, which we also get water from. Those are the 2 primary sources that we have that flow to Metropolitan, and then Metropolitan is the big dog in the fight. They're the largest water agency that we have in the United States. We are one of 26 member agencies that sit as members of Metropolitan that do all of the wholesale out to us, and then we move that water out to our retail agencies, which service most of your customers and your residents within your jurisdictions. About 10 years ago, if you want to go ahead and move to the next slide. So this looks at Western's water resources that we have. When I first came onto the board back in 2006, we were 100% dependent upon imported water. Today, we stand at 38% of local supply and 62% of imported water. And local supply has to do with a number of things that our agencies have worked very hard at producing source water supplies and getting those types of things moving. So we have groundwater production, desalination. We've got a lot of different things going for this area, and we have done a number of projects that benefit our customers. In fact, Western has invested just for our portion and share. It's estimated that over the last 5 or so years, we have invested about $175 million in projects to fortify and take care of those supplies. So staff over at Western and Eastern are working diligently to make sure that you have enough water to take care of and just meet the needs of all of your residents. So we've got projects like the La Sierra Pipeline, the Sterling Pump Station. Those are critical sources that we have to move some of the groundwater basins that we have in the hills in Riverside. And then in Marietta, we've just recently done a project where we did some large investments for large groundwater supplies. Marietta Division, which is a part of Western, that is dependent solely upon groundwater sources. And then when we have the summer months where demand raises, we end up importing a little water to blend that with the groundwater supplies in order to meet the overall demand. So a number of investments have been made for that area. A new well was rehabbed down there, and millions of dollars was spent on that in order to make sure and ensure that that cheaper, inexpensive water down at the groundwater is being taken care of. So that well has been operating wonderfully, and we've had some wonderful feedback from our customers, and we're able to meet those demands now in the Marietta service area. So it's projects like that that we continue to work on and we develop, and we have worked diligently to do with our partners over at Eastern and to diversify our portfolios and using local dollars here in order to make sure that if we ever do have any type of problems, we have other sources to be able to pull from. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will go ahead and conclude my presentation just to give a brief overview. Of course, myself and I'm sure Director Sullivan are available for answering any questions that you may have, or if you'd like to reach out to us at any other point in time or to our agencies, we're always happy to come within your jurisdiction and share any of our knowledge that we have or answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda. Do any of the members of the public or the committee have any questions? Comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on to 6D, COVID-19 fiscal impacts analysis phase 2, opportunities for economic development and resiliency in a new era. Teffion, take it away.
All right, thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So yeah, I'm Teffion Rice-Evans with Economic and Planning Systems, land use economists, and we had the opportunity to work with WRCOG staff several months back looking at some projections of the early impacts of COVID-19. And this is the second part of our work. We've turned to look a little bit more to the future and to think about some of the opportunities for economic development and resiliency in a new era with a focus on the Inland Empire and Western Riverside County. Next slide, please. So, one of the things we wanted to recognize was there's been, I think, facing the Inland Empire, but also many other regions in the US, there are a number of challenges that we're familiar with, some of which have been accelerated by the pandemic, some of which have been around for a while. And so it was kind of in that context we took on this work. And the 4 challenges that were, particularly, I guess, front of mind include 1, the ongoing trend of consolidation and contraction that I think many of us are experiencing and seeing amongst our brick and mortar retail shopping centers. For many years now, many decades now, we've seen the kind of difficult trend of the loss of middle-class jobs in the US generally, which is affecting again, most of our regions. We're seeing increasing levels of competition for innovation economy jobs and the skilled workers that fuel that. And finally, and this is not necessarily true for all regions, but it's true in the Inland Empire and certainly for many others, we have a region where we do see a lot of out commuting for jobs with associated quality of life impact. So with that kind of backdrop and those concerns in mind, next slide, please. We wanted to take, undertook a little bit of work here for WRCOG, looking a little bit at these trends in a little more detail, but really focusing on 3 opportunities where we feel like 3 opportunities worthy of focus as we move forward and think about how do we support the region from an economic development and resiliency perspective. And I'll go into each of those 3 more here in a minute. Next slide, please. Great. So just very briefly, pre-COVID, February 2020, we had about 1.55 million jobs in the Inland Empire spread across a range of industries, some growing, some more quickly than others. Next slide, please. One of the issues I think we're all aware of, and this is for Riverside County, specifically here, while we do have a number of folks who live and work in Riverside County, we have a lot of folks who commute out of the county to jobs. And indeed, we have kind of many more of those folks commuting out of the county than commuting into the county. And this is something obviously that, contributes, some of this is natural, but that kind of net outflow, I think is more than we'd like to see. And many of those folks who are commuting out to jobs with, taking their skills to higher wage jobs elsewhere. And it'd be nice to address that on some level. Next slide, please. I think that we want to chat a little bit, or just for contextual reasons, just kind of note a couple of things about the retail and logistics sector before we focus on some other sectors. I think on the retail sector side, and sorry for the dense writing here, but in brief, the retail sector side, this has been a very important component of the Western Riverside County economy for a while. But the pace of growth in jobs has really been modest. This was true, post-Great Recession, and has been made worse and more challenging in the pandemic era. The kind of, I guess, partly the flip side of that, and some of the good news, at least in the Inland Empire, is the logistics sector, which is very closely tied, obviously, to e-commerce and our shifts to online purchases and the like, has seen really a remarkable expansion in both development and in jobs. And so we've seen a strengthening in that sector. And while there are some, I think future concerns about automation in this area, there's no doubt it's contributing a lot of jobs. Beyond that, and that's where we wanted to focus some of our thinking here today, we wanted to kind of think about what are some of the industry sectors that could help add diversity into the mix and ideally provide strong wages and reduce the out commuting that I just pointed out. Next slide, please. So again, we're going to dive a little bit into 3 areas: the reuse of retail real estate assets, and then 2 industry sectors, healthcare and clean energy sector, potentially areas of focus for future efforts in economic development. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then one again. So on the retail side, none of us wished for the situation where some of our core retail assets, our shopping centers, are struggling, our sales tax generators. But the reality is that we are faced with a changing retail industry and a lot of challenges in that regard. And we are seeing increasing examples throughout California of local governments kind of working with the owners of these assets to reposition them. And in some cases, what that allows to do is to build these mixed-use centers, incorporating additional uses, perhaps office, hospitality, entertainment, and education into a mix. In some cases, we're seeing those new office jobs kind of capturing new businesses, and in some cases bringing in some of those kind of higher wage white collar jobs. And we're also seeing the reorganization, not just as a loss of retail, which unfortunately is occurring, but also as a way to hopefully bolster a core of remaining retail. Next slide, please. Just looking at some statistics in Western Riverside County, just doing a simple search, we found about 10 different retail centers with over 200,000 square feet. Several of them are anchored by some of the department stores that are struggling, perhaps bankrupt, perhaps closed, perhaps just reorganizing. Some are pretty robust. They're more, Home Depots, and there are certain kinds of large stores, right, that are doing very, very well in this era. But all this to say, there are several examples spread around the Galleria and Tyler and the Riverside is one example where there may be opportunities for jurisdictions to work with interested landowners to think about the repositioning of these substantial assets in some of your communities. Next slide, please. So yeah, in summary, obviously these are usually privately owned assets, so it depends on the interests of the landowners, but we do think there may be opportunities, selective opportunities to explore, to attract new private investment, housing and jobs, create these kind of mixed use districts that in some cases are good at attracting the kind of younger, skilled workforce, and hopefully also support a core resilient retail. Next slide, please. So now I just want to chat about the two different industry sectors that we think have promise for the region going forward. Healthcare is one of them, and then clean energy I'll come to in a minute. I think we're all familiar with some of these trends that we have been seeing in Riverside County, and this is true elsewhere as well, but a substantial growth in the number of in the proportion of the residents who are over 65, and pretty much everybody agrees and expects that to continue into the future. This population drives a lot of healthcare needs, broadly stated. Next slide, please. So we think there's a real opportunity for healthcare sector jobs. They do cover a broad range from highly trained folks to less trained folks. So it's a big industry, a lot of different kind of jobs within it, but the expectations of growth in this sector are large, and also promising is statistics like the second one here, that the national median wage for healthcare workers is about 74% higher than the median wage for all industries. So they do provide the opportunity. Again, it's an average, not all jobs, but a spread. And good opportunities for, we think, future jobs in Riverside County. Next slide, please. Here's just a bit of history as well. I think that a lot of the slides we've looked at historically, especially through the Great Recession, show show a kind of a steeper loss and slower recovery. A little bit like the logistics sector, the healthcare sector has been one of those sectors that has been able to, still affected by the recession, of course, but has been able to provide a broad array of jobs consistently through time. And again, that demand is expected to continue into the future. Next slide, please. Just to focus on one example, the nursing profession. This is one arena where there is a substantial expectation of the need, a substantial number of job openings each year. The median wage is robust. It's about, it's well above the average for kind of industry sectors as a whole. And so that's just a kind of a sub example of one kind of occupation within this industry where there will be increasing demand and need for workers. Next slide, please. I think we don't want to talk about healthcare without talking about, kind of biotech industry. It is, has become over the last 20 years a very substantial, fast-growing industry. We do know that it's not, at present, it doesn't have a substantial presence in Riverside County, but we have seen large clusters grow in San Diego County and Orange County. And we do know that the UC Riverside has established a wet lab incubator to support the kind of a growing profile in the county. Next slide, please. So I think in summary, I get to repeat myself a little bit here. We do think healthcare is going to drive a lot of potentially, kind of medium and well-paying jobs. We do recognize biotech firms are modest, but we think there's some opportunity there to kind of capture more and hopefully to kind of capture some of those folks who might be commuting out to Orange County to maintain them here in Riverside County. And again, we think there's opportunities for continue with organizations like UC Riverside, opportunities for continued collaboration in that regard. Next slide, please. Okay, clean energy. So, as I think most of us know, the state of California has, strong ambitions and targets in this regard going forward. We've already seen it move, we've already been pushed, if you will, from a more modest percentage of renewable energy production to a pretty substantial one. We know that we are a large, player in the national scale of energy production, renewable energy production, and the southwestern part, the southeastern region, the part of us, of the state, the Inland Empire, we know plays a substantial role in that. Next slide, please. By some estimates, there are about 500,000 clean energy jobs in California, growing and expected to grow. I think it's important to note that many of these jobs are in the the construction installation sector, but there is, as I'll chat about in a minute, there is a presence of manufacturing jobs in this arena. Some of it has been lost overseas, but there continues to be a presence here. And as I think different regions in the U.S. compete for advanced manufacturing, it is one area worthy of focus. Next slide, please. In terms of just the kind of solar installation as one example of a kind of a job profile, there has been increasing demand and it's expected to continue to increase over the next 10 years. The median wage is somewhat above the average for all industries. And it is an opportunity in a job where if you have more modest formal training, you can get engaged in it. So again, we think there are opportunities here for robust jobs. Next slide, please. In terms of advanced manufacturing, I think we'd all love to capture more in the way of manufacturing. There are remaining in California some large publicly traded clean energy companies that's kind of worth noting. And there are many other smaller manufacturers of solar and wind parts that are spread throughout the state. And there's a few here in Western Riverside County. I'm not super familiar with all of them, but there is some level of presence. Next slide, please. So again, on summarizing, we do think there's some good job opportunities for apprenticeship programs and others in clean energy, and both in the kind of insulation and potentially in the advanced manufacturing arena. Next slide, please. So to wrap up, and sorry for the slightly fast pace of delivery here, but again, I think what we really want to say is we recognize that there is a broad set of challenges we're all facing. We know that economic development and resiliency are, high priority goals for Western Riverside County. And some of the data exploration that we've done broadly and was specific to Western Riverside County does lead us to believe that in these three kind of areas of reuse of retail real estate and the healthcare and clean energy sectors, there may be areas that are important for kind of private and public sector focus where possible to support them. Those could be important strategies to think about as we move forward. And that wraps my presentation. Happy to take questions if appropriate.
All right, does anyone have a question? Any comments, anything they'd like to? Hey, I have a question actually. So we have our Navy base there in Norco, and one of the things I've been trying to get a hook on is, and I'm meeting with a captain in a couple of weeks, is the technology transfers. And the problem that we have is they claim there's all these technology transfers sitting there with the federal government, but there's no facility. We were working with the former president of Norco College to try to find a way to find them, attach to them, and bring businesses to them or find them. In other words, to have the private sector meet the public sector. My understanding is in the 9 years I've been working on this, we've had one company that has been able to utilize that technology transfer of information. Do you know anything about that? And is that something that we should be exploring? I mean,
yes, yeah. I mean, I certainly don't know everything about it, but what I do know, and we've studied this in relation to, variety of UCs and national labs. We know it's not we have seen a substantial number of transfers of patents coming out of these research organizations. We do know that when we're talking about the federal government, and depending on the kind of research that's going on, there can be, confidentiality issues and perhaps cultural barriers to sharing that information. But a lot of places do try to set up technology transfer offices, do try to have sometimes, kind of, and again, this is not always possible, but a kind of a presence of a I guess, a civilian, campus or incubator close there to facilitate the transfer opportunities. So sometimes some of it's a little bit happenstance depending on how commercializable the technologies are, but I think there are opportunities to facilitate through, kind of creating those opportunities, perhaps through kind of physical presence, perhaps through kind of formal programs, and those are kind of issues that I could try to share some information that colleagues of mine have done in terms of what has worked in other locations.
Yeah, I personally, I'd love to hear it, because we do have quite a little cottage industry around our Navy base, and it would be nice if we could facilitate growing that. So, thank you. Crystal Ruiz, San Jacinto.
Thank you. My question is, did you take into consideration when you're looking at businesses coming in and the things that we'd like to attract, were you taking into consideration the results of this election? Because coming up, the Prop 15 is not good for businesses. And I know multiple businesses that are very, very large corporations that are planning on leaving if this thing passes.
Yeah, no, this is a great question, great point. This, I guess the short answer is no. The larger answer is I think we're looking for positive opportunities to follow up on. As you say, I think there are many policy actions or laws that could be passed that would make it harder, that are certainly well outside of my control, but also well worth kind of being aware of. But I was looking at this a little bit, blind to some of those additional policies that might be coming into place, to be honest.
Thank you, Crystal. Anybody else? All right, thank you, sir, very much. We really appreciate it. And I look forward maybe to hearing something about the technology transfers.
Okay.
Moving on to 6E, update on potential formation of a Western Riverside County Economic Development Corporation. Ms. Laurel.
Good afternoon, Executive Committee, and thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, I'm here to provide an update on the potential formation and exploration of an economic development corporation here in Western Riverside County. So before I jump into the meat of the presentation, I thought I might share a little bit in terms of why WRCOG continues to look particularly at the area of economic development. As you can see here, since 2012, our executive committee approved the Economic Development Sustainability Framework. And for years, we have been asked by our executive committee and many of our members to repeatedly look at the area of economic development. And we've been asked to investigate potential ways in which we could be more involved in economic development in general. Next slide, please. So to share with you a little bit of a history in regards to our efforts in economic development, typically we didn't really take any major action as it related to this area. We were given requests and typically staff would invite, for example, other entities such as the Inland Empire Economic Partnership or Riverside County EDA and other economic development groups to share what efforts were being done in relation to economic development, but no significant action was necessarily taken by WRCOG in this area until earlier in July when the Admin and Finance Committee approved the further exploration of an economic development corporation. Next slide, please. So I thought I'd start off with one of the most important reasons as to why we're taking action and continue to take action on economic development. You can read many of the facts here and the data points on the screen, but I thought I'll start off actually by sharing a story with you. This is a personal story. I grew up in the city of Moreno Valley and my father worked in Orange County for a number of years. He commuted so much on the 91 freeway that he had a license plate that said Alumni 91 because he would always jokingly say that he could have gotten his college degree with all the time he spent and lost on that freeway. Next slide, please. And as you continue to read these data points on the screen, I'll move on to the next part of my personal story. So you fast forward to my life, my time in high school, and I suddenly became a senior in high school, applying for college, working on my homework and writing my father's resume. You see, after all this time, my father spent on the freeway and his faithful commute on the 91 freeway, my father lost his job. And the company left the state and they were driven out by the high costs of California. And we were subjected to, trying to figure out what to do next. And we were a family of 4 living in the Inland Empire. Next slide, please. And as you continue to read the final data points that I have here on the current economic conditions, the final piece of my story is, I will always remember it was a rainy day weekend and I sat in the backseat of our car with my brother as we accompanied my father and he dropped off his resume to any job that would take it. And I will always recall the look on my father's face every time he returned to the car. He was saddened, heartbroken, and disappointed. When he lost his job, he lost his dignity. And I guess you could say as a high school student, that's when I recognized what it meant when a company left a community and the impacts it had, not only on the community, it was not just a vacant building, it was a lot more. And so I share this story with you because I'm sure as you've read these data points, they're fairly alarming. And I think we barely moved the needle in this region. And I think, and I know that we can do better. Next slide, please. I also want to be very, very candid about the challenges that we have here in economic development, particularly in the area of California. We've had a number of issues in California from funding. So with the demise of redevelopment, we've lost a really great tool in terms of trying to attract businesses to grow them here in this region and in California in general. We also have the demise of state enterprise zones, which also served as a great tool for economic development and attracting businesses and retaining them here. Frankly, we've also had a lack of coordination when it came to economic development. We have substantial competition amongst one another, and in my professional opinion, what we tend to have is a displacement of economic development, where we compete over sales tax and we're not necessarily growing the wealth within the region for the long term. In addition to that, we continue to have in California regulatory and legislative issues. California's climate is obviously very, very difficult, and then we continue to have taxation issues. And then lastly, we also have a shift in perception of economic development versus community development. Economic development more so is focused on the economic vitality of a region and lifting the community up through job diversification, in addition to long-term economic development strategies. And community development is more so focused on the local community, which is a very, very important effort. And much of it is also focused on retail as well. But EDCs, in our experience as far as our discovery efforts and research, it's not necessarily something they get involved with. For example, an EDC actually probably more so gets involved with issues, Chairman, to your point of finding tech transfers and things of that nature. We worked with we interviewed actually the Economic Development Corporation in Texas, and they're led particularly by the defense industry. And so the EDC is the facilitator and the vehicle that helps to operate that effort. Next slide, please. So I wanted to also share one of the long-term economic development success stories. This is in California in San Luis Obispo County. For years, many of the local communities were focused on competing against one another. They also were interested in obviously growing their own piece of the pie until the closure of the Diablo Canyon Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. They then focused instead on a need that they needed to advance the industries and create a more diversified job space in their area. And by working together, they were able to leverage one collective voice to bring residents and businesses and visitors to the region and shift their economy. And collectively, they were able to grow not just their piece of the pie, but also the overall pie, in a sense, growing their slice. So this is a general idea of what EDCs can do when working with other regions and entities when they work together. Next slide, please. I also want to share what have other regions done inside and outside of California. Of course, they've pursued a number of different types of regional strategies to grow their local economies. But I will share with you one of the common factors that we found was many of the regions had what were known as economic development corporations and EDCs. They typically live outside of government. They're driven by the private sector. And EDCs also serve as a regional convening body and can help the region speak with one voice economically. The EDC also becomes this long-lasting vehicle for sustained economic development efforts to help the local economy. Next slide, please. As you can see here, we actually produced a map, and these cities, these entities were provided to us, the list was provided to us by the California Association of Economic Development, or CalEd. And this list actually also showcases all of the other counties that have EDCs. We also see that there's actually a gap here in the Western Riverside County subregion. We did outline the Southwest EDC, but in our research and discovery efforts, they are currently dormant. Right now, I also had the opportunity to meet with its former executive director and share some insights with me as well, but they are currently dormant. So there is a gap when it comes to an economic development corporation or an entity that serves as one here in the Western Riverside County subregion. Next slide, please. And so have others seen the need for an EDC? And I'll share with you that actually, yes, others have seen a need for an EDC. Actually, the Brookings Institute had done a, it's called the Inland Empire Growth and Opportunities Report. And essentially the findings were that we needed to grow our middle skill jobs in the Inland Empire. And one of the findings was that the region could potentially take an ambitious action towards investing in an economic development corporation. So this was not something that was cited internally in terms of our own research efforts. This was actually something that was pointed out by the Brookings Institute when they were performing the Inland Empire Growth and Opportunities Report and doing a study and analysis of the region. Next slide, please. So I also want to be upfront. Has this been done before? I'll walk you through each of the different elements that we have on the screen in front of you today. So the Inland Empire Economic Partnership serves as kind of the economic development organization in a sense for the entire Inland Empire, but they're certainly more focused on advocacy. They have shifted in terms of their efforts. They are focused more so on the logistics industry as well too. And the Southwest EDC currently, that has been an effort in the Southwest region. They are dormant at this point though. And then the maturation of our cities within the region has also played a large part in the development of economic development in the region. And I say that because over the years, our cities have matured and they've grown in terms of population and what they pursue in terms of economic development. Because of the way policy is formed in California, a lot of it is geared towards sales tax and towards retail. And so we see a lot of cities investing in economic developers that specifically focus on retail. And then we also had the maturation of Riverside County as a brand, and we also had the maturation of San Bernardino County as a brand. So then both started to shift apart from one another in terms of branding and development. And then when times are good, we tend to decentralize our models when the economy is good. And EDCs in general have often served as an opportunity for centralized shared resources, capacity building and growth, and then developing greater brand value. And then most importantly is that EDCs offer the ability to transcend political administrations. Now, what are the advantages of an EDC in general? Regional branding and marketing is certainly one of those, telling our story. This was a consistent theme that we found in our research efforts and discovery, very aggressive efforts. So for example, one of the EDCs that we interviewed is actually taking a concerted action towards attracting the tech industry up in the Bay Area. With everything that's going on and with the current COVID-19 climate, there's an opportunity to obviously work from home. So they're marketing their region as a place to attract tech companies and tech employees to work in their area. Instead, they can work from home and they're able to basically nimbly respond to the needs of industry. They also serve as a vehicle for sustained economic development efforts and transcend political administrations. I share this with you because a number of our peers, for example, LAEDC started around the 1980s and they're only on their 4th CEO. So they have a number of years that the CEO stays there and is able to promote sustained economic development practices and programming. OCBC, for example, Lucy Dunn, who is their president and CEO, has been there for 15 plus years. And then the San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation in general, they started 50 years ago and they're seen as a model, not just in California, but throughout the nation in terms of economic development efforts. And then a local EDC in California, actually, because of their nonprofit status, and in addition to them being a corporation type model, they're able to develop and create a vehicle for programs and incentives for developers. Next slide, please. So I want to be frank, do businesses even want to come to California? So you can see some of the data points on here. I will share with you as an economic development practitioner, no, businesses don't want to be in California. They need to be in California. They don't want to be here a lot of the time because of our climate, obviously, and they don't want to be here because of the challenges of doing business. But I will share that I've had many case studies and practices where when there are aggressive efforts, specifically on economic development and welcoming them to the community, they do end up citing here, and they will always share it. They don't want to be in California. They need to be in California because of our market access, because of our diversity, because of just the general growth. Next slide, please. And is anyone doing this? Next slide, please. So is anyone doing this type of work? So from our discovery efforts, I want to share with you, we interviewed 30 plus stakeholders. They consist of 18 cities, the County of Riverside, 4 chambers, and 10 regional stakeholders. And from our discovery efforts, quite frankly, no single entity was currently viewed as representing the WRCOG region for economic development. And no one entity was really pointed out as kind of the model for economic development in terms of marketing, branding. There was not an entity that came up as, yes, that entity is telling our story. This entity is focusing on economic development efforts for all of Western Riverside County. That never came up. I think what also came up was that quite frankly, many of our discovery efforts and our interviews were private, and many shared, this was the right thing to do. That this was something that was needed very much in the region, but nobody was really doing it. And so someone, some entity, people needed to come together to have the courage to do something different. And then I will also share with you, there's certainly been some previous efforts that have been conducted from attending events like ICSC to brochures that were being developed, website development, small tactical efforts, but good efforts nonetheless. But like anything else in life, it takes a concerted, sustained, and deliberate effort to be able to succeed in anything. And so the subregion in general, there needs to be a requirement for sustained and ongoing deliberate efforts surrounding economic development. And an economic development corporation serves as that vehicle to do so. Next slide, please. And so as far as our next steps, WRCOG is convening a group of stakeholders consisting of local elected officials, agency staff, chambers of commerce, private industry representatives. Back in October, actually, our technical advisory committee approved the appointment of 6 members from the TAC committee to serve on the EDC steering committee. So we are requesting today that the executive committee appoint 3 members from the executive committee. And the intent of the steering committee will be to focus on meeting around 3 times. We're going to commence probably in December or January to affirm a couple of these items, which is whether sub-regional EDC is needed, how to fund it, staffing and governance, and then final recommendations from there. So with that, I wanted to go ahead and take any questions, but the requested action is to appoint at least 3 representatives from the executive committee to serve on the ED steering committee.
Do we have any comments or questions at this point? How would you like to proceed in terms of the requested? Oh, Rusty.
Hey there. I just want to
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? I'm so sorry.
Oh, you now.
Go ahead, Mayor Bailey.
Just want to commend WRCOG for continuing this process. I think you've done an incredible job of justifying staff time and bringing this to our attention. And really, it's our decision whether or not we want to compete with our neighbors. That was very evident in the presentation and in the research that you all have performed. So I'm fully in support of this. I wish I was going to be on the executive committee longer. I signed up to be one of the members, but I will be looking from the outside and supporting and cheerleading from the outside. I've had conversations with UCR who are definitely on board with this. I think that they will be a part of it, and I also with RCC. So the education sector sees the need for a regional economic development corporation, and more than that, sees the need for leadership in economic development. And there is, no other option. And so, I just want to fully support you and staff. And my hope is for us to truly come together like no other time. The situation dictates that we do that we come together and we unify our voice and our direction. And, if we don't do this, we're all going to go down together. If we don't come together and row in the same direction, whatever analogy you want to use, it's time to use that analogy. And so good on you, Rick and Chris and Elisa for bringing this to fruition. And, I wholeheartedly support it. And so does Riverside.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Kelly.
Thank you. I kind of want to join Rusty in encouraging the board to go forward and explore this. It's just another item in a long list of things, programs that we've asked WRCOG, and we've utilized WRCOG to better work together as all of our cities try to grapple with some of these issues that we have that it's hard for us to grapple with them on our own. And, you know, every person I've ever talked to dating back to the 1997 has talked about how we all need to work together. And when ARCOG is bringing programs like this forward, these are ways that we are utilizing the ARCOG to deal with those issues and working together. And you know, that's how, you know, too many times some of these get derailed by detractors. They always want to find that, oh no, we can't let them do too much. You know what? That's what ARCOG is for. And I want to commend Rick and Elisa and Chris and everybody at ARCOG for working on these things, not knowing whether they're going to get the support that they need from the various agencies, the individual agencies. But I can assure you that I think Murrieta will be on board. We work on our own economic development, and we've been part of other economic development corporation, but they're smaller in scope and more narrow in scope. And really, you know, this type of thing where you're looking for the entire Western Riverside County, I think that is, you know, I think it's high time that we get on board and compete. And then we can work on some of those other things that Elisa was talking about, the environment that we're trying to attract these people in. I think as a voice for a region like this, we can be a little bit stronger with that. So I commend you guys, and I would be supportive, just like Rusty. I'm not going to be on the committee, but I would be totally supportive of it. And I'm sure the person that is going to be coming in behind me will be supportive also. Thank you.
Anyone else? So how would you like to appoint the 3 people? I've got a couple of suggestions already. Anybody dying to be on this committee?
I would like to.
That's Crystal.
I would like to.
Okay, we got Mike, and then we also have a recommendation for Brenda.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Benoit has raised his hand as well.
Okay. Ben, so we've got Ben, Crystal, Brenda, and Mike.
I want to nominate Supervisor Spiegel. We got to have a supervisor on there.
Karen? Karen, are you interested? Nice job, Mayor Bailey.
Hey, she's my supervisor. I gotta, you know, rib her for a little bit longer.
No.
My only challenge is I was going to even abstain with this because I'm still having concerns when talking with our folks over here at the county and EDA economic development. So I'm not 100% there. I mean, I could be involved, but I think you want someone who's 100% on board. I'm not there right now.
Actually, Supervisor Spiegel, if I could say, just say, actually, you would be perfect for the committee because we actually don't want to have a group of, we don't want this to be an echo chamber or a yes man exercise. You know, we have, Elisa and myself and Rick have talked to county staff. So we in fact would like to have EDA be on the steering committee if possible, or a county representative. So if you could make the time, I think it would be tremendously beneficial to have the county's perspective. And we really do want to, you know, if this work is being done by the county and being done effectively, I think it's critical that everyone knows it. So I just wanted to ask if you have her, if you have the time, it would be very beneficial.
I second that coercion.
Chris.
Karen, I'm only going to stay on it if you come with me.
Chris.
Okay, Karen, come on, say yes.
Oh my Lord. Give me an extra hour in each day and I'll be more than happy to do it.
I have a question. So is there a reason that we have just 3? We have 5 people who would like to be on.
Yes. So the only issue we run into, and Mr. DeBon can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're trying to avoid a quorum of any of our committees. So with the TAC, we had 6 members. We'd originally asked for 5, giving 6. So as you know, the action is written for at least 3. So I believe that as long as we, Steve, have less than a quorum of the Admin and Finance Committee or the Executive Committee, we are okay.
What is the quorum for that?
Yeah, that is correct.
So if you were to pick, so we would just have to verify that the members, whoever is brought forward, is not, we're not at a quorum of the Admin and Finance Committee.
Well, everybody, as far as I can see, everyone is on that committee.
Right. So by my recollection, if we have 5 people, then we're okay.
Okay.
Correct, Steve?
so
Okay.
I would make a motion
Yes,
that 5 people that are interested, we go ahead and expand it from 3 to 5. So it would include Ben, Mike, Karen, Brenda, and Crystal.
Yeah, and just for clarification, Councilmember Goodland is not on the admin committee.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about
So
that.
we're good.
All right.
Thank you.
Right.
I'll second the motion. This is Victoria, Moreno Valley.
Sorry, Mike. I always see you around.
Too bad, Karen. I saw that frown.
We're neighbors. So do we have a second? I didn't hear that.
Moreno Valley seconded.
Okay, can we have a vote?
Are we going to combine this with the next item? We have 2 items with requested action. So in the spirit of saving time, it was anticipated that we would combine this with the vote for the next item.
All right, sounds fine. All right, moving on then to F, proposed project list for SCAG Regional Early Action Program, Sub-Regional Partnership Program. Christopher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, member of the committee, Christopher Zhang, WRCOG staff, here to provide a summary of a funding opportunity through SCAG, the Regional Early Action Planning Grant Program. The state has created multiple grant programs to increase housing planning and accelerate housing production to support our jurisdictions in meeting their housing element requirements. Staff at your jurisdictions are aware of the 2 funding programs through Assembly Bill 101 and the Local Early Action Planning Grant, LEAP. REAP funding is meant to provide additional support to our jurisdictions. SCAG is receiving a total of $47.5 million, of which they are making $23.7 million available to support their regional partnership programs. Next slide, please. The sub-regional partnership programs goals are to help jurisdictions, again, meet their RENA requirements and to promote the sustainable development goals of the Connect SoCal plan. Through the program, WRCOG is eligible to receive about $1.7 million, which is based on our subregion's RENA allocation. I should also note that SCAG has allocated separate funding from the WRCOG allotment for the County of Riverside. So the county will be applying separately, but we've been coordinating with county staff. WRCOG has engaged with staff at your jurisdictions and internally about assistance of projects. In addition, we've also had ongoing conversations with SCAG staff to identify an appropriate list of projects in order to meet SCAG's final application deadline of December 1st, 2020, which is why we're bringing this item to the committee. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, REAP funding is meant to support our jurisdictions in meeting housing element requirements. As a friendly reminder, your jurisdiction's 6 cycle housing elements must be revised and updated to include and identify your housing needs for your jurisdiction's RENA allocation by October 15th, 2021. So we're less than 12 months away. With that in mind, the first 5 projects listed on the table are aimed at assisting jurisdictions with the technical data needed to complete housing elements and meet your jurisdiction's RENA allocation. These projects will also assist jurisdictions in meeting state law requirements in future general plan updates. In addition, WRCOG is currently developing a sub-regional climate action plan update, of which 14 of our jurisdictions are participating. WRCOG is proposing to utilize REAP funding to perform a programmatic EIR for the CAP that will allow our participating jurisdictions to streamline greenhouse gas analyses and help expedite the approval process for housing developments. WRCOG is also proposing to utilize REAP funds to assist on regionally significant projects that have recently been introduced. First, the establishment of a housing trust fund and the EDC, which you have heard about. Staff is proposing to utilize some REAP funding to establish the housing trust fund. Next slide. Lastly, WRCOG believes an EDC will help build homes in the subregion, which the REAP program is meant to accelerate housing production. We believe the subregion's inability to build housing doesn't derive from a lack of available lots, but can be largely attributed to a lack of individuals who can afford housing. This is based on our analysis that as many as 200,000 entitled units are available in Western Riverside County. We know that builders will only build homes that they can sell, and we believe an EDC has the ability to bring the types of high-paying jobs like those in Typhion's report that will enable the already entitled units to be built. In addition, the lack of high-paying jobs is a major cause of many of the underlying issues in the region that our jurisdictions and SCAG are interested in addressing, such as traffic congestion and air quality. Funding the operations of an EDC is requiring additional attention in our pursuit of REAP funding. SCAG staff has not seen the direct connection between housing and quality job creation. So we have prepared a letter to address to the SCAG executive director, requesting the use of REAP funds to operate an EDC. This letter provides additional details that were highlighted in this report and the staff report and is attached to the staff report for this item. Mr. Chair, this concludes my presentation and I'm happy to answer any questions. We are requesting the 2 actions from the executive committee listed on the screen.
Do we have any comments from the committee? Anybody have a question or statement? Motion? Anybody wish to make a motion to direct staff to submit the list of projects to SCAG for the REAP grant program?
So moved.
Second, Wildemar.
All right, and then moving on to the next one. Anybody want to make a motion to direct staff to submit a letter to SCAG requesting REAP funding for the Economic Development Corporation?
Temecula moves.
Second. So now, did you want to do all 3 of these together? Is that what you wanted to do, Janice?
Yes, we will take item 6E and 6F together under one roll call vote.
All right, so everybody understands that, correct? All right, Mary Ann, you're talking?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. I was hoping you would sing for us.
Yes, I was whispering, sorry.
All right, that's all right. I was hoping, like I said, I was hoping you would sing. Can we please have a vote?
Certainly. City of Banning,
Yes.
Beaumont. I'm sorry, can we go back for City of Banning? Who is that?
This is David Happy, representing Mayor Andrade.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Happy.
Yes, sir. Beaumont? Calamasa?
Yes.
Canyon Lake?
Yes.
Corona? Mr. Scott, sir? Eastville? Hemet?
Yes.
Rupa Valley?
Yes.
Lake Elsinore?
Yes.
Menifee?
Yes.
Moreno Valley?
Yes.
Murrieta?
Yes.
Norco?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Riverside?
Yes.
San Jacinto?
Yes.
Temecula?
Yes.
Wildemar?
Yes.
County of Riverside, District 1? District 2?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. District 3? Supervisor Washington? District 5?
Mine is a no.
District 5 is a no.
That's right.
Thank you, sir. Eastern Municipal Water District? Western Municipal Water District?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call vote for that item.
All right, thank you. So moving on to report from Technical Advisory Committee Chair, my favorite city manager, Andy Okoro. Hello, Andy.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
All right. Good afternoon, executive committee members. I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend the meeting last time. I'm still getting used to the time and dates for the executive committee meeting. But the TAC, we had our meeting on October 15th, and it was our regular meeting. We went through, received update on the various programs that are under WRCOG, including the energy program, the TUMF and transportation program, as well as receive information regarding the financial activities of WRCOG. We also received a presentation from the Riverside County Flood Control District regarding the municipal separate stormwater system. They provided us information regarding the compliance issues and some of the programs that they have implemented to help cities to comply with that MS4 permit. As you heard today, we also received information regarding the development of economic development corporation in the WRCOG sub-region. The city managers were very strong in their support for this program, mainly because of two reasons. One is the fact that they will serve as a single point of contact for the region, as well as to effectively brand the region. In so doing, we did appoint 5 members to serve on the steering committee. Those 5 members were from the cities of Beaumont, Moreno Valley, San Jacinto, City of Paris, and also City of Corona. We also believe that the formation of this EDC is consistent with the idea of creating economic development resiliency for the sub-region. Those are the only items that I think is of interest to the executive committee. With that, I'll conclude my report.
Thank you, Andy. Does anyone have a comment or a question for Andy? Again, thank you, Andy. Moving on to 8, report from committee representatives. Ben, do you have something?
No major updates, just one quick one that we did update our fire rule for wood burning fireplaces. So there will be a few more days this year where that will be coming into effect. We do have quite a few other rules coming forward over the next 2-3 months, but that's the only one we've updated right at the moment.
All right, Brian Teasdale.
Nothing to report.
Thank you, sir. Rusty Bailey.
Yeah.
Sawpaw, any report?
No, there's no meeting.
All right, well, thank you. Sandag, Crystal.
So we discussed once again the 2020 census and how we could coordinate and getting the word out and outreach. We also talked about the 2019 Sandag cross-border travel survey update, which, you know, it was pretty interesting. I was surprised at some of the numbers. Also an update on the transboundary water conditions in an effort to coordinate the Tijuana River Basin and whatnot. They're having some serious issues down there, so they're really working on that. Other than that, that is it.
All right, thank you, Crystal. Moving on to number 9, report from the executive director, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first off, best of luck to all of you who are running for re-election or for another office. And as always, we want to let you know how much we appreciate your service to WRCOG and your dedication to the agency as well as the jurisdictions you represent. Just a couple other things I wanted to mention. If you go to the next slide. Last Thursday was a really interesting Future Forward series that was held. And the reason we put this up here is you can go back, they're recorded. And so you can go to the YouTube channel and find this. We talked about the future of the office and had a really, really robust discussion about what COVID has done to office work environments and how and whether or not that's going to change in the future. Episode 8 will be in December, and the topic will be on grant writing. And obviously, we continue to look for ways to secure additional funding for all of our member jurisdictions. So hopefully you and your staff can tune into that as well. Next slide. Just wanted to also mention our podcast continues. We have about 45 episodes in the books. You can see we have some upcoming episodes. We just finished recording with the City of Menifee on their economic development efforts. So Councilmember Leesmeyer, thanks so much for availing your staff for that. We'll be talking about one with Joel Kotkin, a pretty well-known columnist who actually happened to be the first General Assembly speaker when I started as your executive director about 20 years ago. So 20 years later, we're going to see what he thinks about how things are unfolding in the Inland Empire. Those podcasts, I think, are good. They're 20 minutes long. They give a real interesting narrative to those that might not know about the issues that we're covering. They're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Google Play if you're interested in listening. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Moving on to items for futures agenda. Does someone have something they'd like to agendize?
On the WRCOG Zoom, I need about 5 more minutes, I think. So.
Oh, somebody's on the phone. All right, hearing none. Moving on to general announcements.
I have an announcement.
Yes.
So depending upon how things go tomorrow, if they go well, this will be my last meeting because I have to actually step down before I would be sworn in the assembly. So I just wanted to say what a pleasure it's been since 2000 when I first came on the ARCOG, and then the 10 years that I was able to serve on it. What a pleasure it's been to work with Rick and all of the various staff members along the way, along with all the executive committee members from the various cities in the county. And I encourage everybody to continue the good work and using the ARCOG in a positive way to help deal with some of the problems, and also making our communities better. The streetlight program is just an amazing program for us, and it's going to save us a lot of money. The the energy, Western Community Energy, that a lot of other cities joined in. I think it's doing great things for them. And I think we're kind of regretting that we didn't join, and maybe we'll join in the future. But the TUMP program, we'd be lost without that as far as transportation is concerned. And, there are other opportunities out there. I understand the RCA is going to the RCTC. I'm not quite sure how that happened without all of us knowing too much about it. But at any rate, continue to use the ARCOG to do great things. When we brought Rick on in the 2000, we had one goal for him. Basically, it was to make ARCOG relevant. And today, ARCOG is probably the best, most recognized COG in the state. And it certainly is relevant. The programs that we have are relevant. Not all of them work the way we wanted them to, but Rick has navigated that and done a great job in trying to adjust on the fly when we needed to. So congratulations, Rick, for a job well done. And hopefully I'll be working with everybody in the future to continue to work on the things that the county needs here, and Western Riverside County needs in particular. And so thank you all for putting up with me on the executive committee.
Thank you, Kelly. Give them hell. I'm sure it'll go well for you.
Will do.
Good luck, Kelly.
Any other announcements?
Good luck.
Thanks.
So I have a couple. One, we at Norco, we're going to be videoing our Veterans Day, and we're really pleased that we have the actor Keith David will be our primary speaker. If you've ever seen Platoon or about literally 300 movies, you'll recognize him. So he's going to be our guest. And then for Pearl Harbor Day, we have Karen Spiegel's going to speak for us. She hasn't agreed yet, but I told her about it. She will be opening for us. And then we're going to focus on the two commanding officers, one from Seal Beach and one from Corona. And we're filming quite a few things to sort of interlay into Pearl Harbor Day. The reason we do it in Norco is the first patients to arrive at our hospital were from Pearl Harbor. And this would be the 16th year we've done it. So this year will be about 25 minutes. So you're all invited to watch that. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, our next meeting is December 7th, 2020, the day that will live in infamy, 2 p.m. on the Zoom platform. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. Got a lot done. Have a wonderful day and have a wonderful next couple of weeks, next couple of months, a month rather.
Bye, everybody. Good luck.
Bye-bye. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.